Decent upsurge by the Florida Gators in wins over Auburn and going to LSU with a nice effort in Death Valley, and a very slight downturn by Georgia in losing, well, to South Carolina at home, and the one-score victory over Notre Dame had caused a few observers out there to start to lean toward the Florida Gators after the entire offseason being nothing but Georgia for the most part across the board in most people's evaluation of the SEC Eastern Division. Georgia being a top 3 to 5 team, Florida being a top 10 to 15 team in regards to roster talent. Again, entering this game, things had seemed to even out. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down Florida, Georgia. But it was Georgia-Florida this year as it was last year. Final score of 24-17 as the Dogs take ownership of the SEC Eastern Division. And let's break it down here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe if you love college football debate and discussion. Also, some analysis from me and the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. All right. Georgia got off to a 3-0 lead on a 16-play, 47-yard drive. That gave us indication of things to come throughout the entire game. It was a slugfest. This was not 48-45, sling the ball around 50 times type of matchup. This was not going to be this kind of game. All right. So, again, that is indicative of this game. 16 plays, 47 yards for a field goal for Georgia to get on the board. If we pick it up about mid-second quarter, Lawrence Cager factored into this game heavily. On this particular play, though, awarded a catch that he should not have been awarded. I think it was fairly clear to see on the replay, which was a bad review on a 3rd and 6, which would have forced, most likely, Georgia to go for a field goal. Instead, they had a 1st and goal. They converted when Jake Fromm hit Dominique Blaylock for the touchdown, so the Dogs led 10-0. It probably should have been 6-0. Bad on you, officials. All right. 3rd and 8 at the Florida at the Georgia 20 at this point. So Kyle Trask has led them down the field. The two big plays on the Gators' first scoring march was Trask to Kyle Pitts. We talked about Kyle Pitts throughout the week of being a main factor in this game potentially for Florida. Trask hit Pitts. He also hit Freddie Swain on the series of 29 and 23 yards. But on the 3rd and 8 inside the 20-yard line, batted ball by Trayvon Walker. And so the 5-star comes up big on that series to end the Florida scoring threat in terms of a touchdown. Evan McPherson hits the field goal, and you got a 10-3 game. So Trayvon Walker with a big play. All right. Georgia drive, they could have scored the touchdown, but Jake Fromm missed Lawrence Cager on a 3rd and 6 play. There was a DeAndre Swift drop on a fairly key play, but Georgia does get the field goal to make it 13-3. But Fromm was flush from the pocket. It was a difficult throw. He was rolling to his left. He actually did a nice job to elude a lot of defenders and threw it to Lawrence Cager, who was running with him, and Fromm got it way out too far in front of Cager and missed him. 13-3 with a field goal. Go to the second half. Brian Harrion made one of the catches of the day, the season. We'll see. Fully extended, lifts the ball, kind of bats it up in the air to himself and cradles it, and gets the separation of the grass and the football between his hands. 5-minute drive, 64 yards. That was the highlight play of maybe the day, but certainly that drive. And with the field goal, the Dogs led it at 16-3. And really, when it came down to it, the separation of these two teams is running the football. Georgia didn't pound it down their throats, didn't run away from Florida. The Gators controlled the run, but Georgia at least was able to be productive on the ground. With 119 yards rushing, Florida could do nothing on the ground. And we talked about this all week as being deciding factor number one. Front sevens versus offensive lines and who would win, and Georgia won on both sides of the ball. They won enough offensively to keep the chains moving. Again, DeAndre Swift, 25 carries for 86 yards, 119 total yards on the ground for Georgia, while Florida did basically nothing. Now the rushing numbers, again, skewed on the Florida side because of the sacks against Trask, but they basically, in running for 21 yards, ran for about 50 yards in terms of running back carries. And then also big plays blown coverages a couple times out of Florida, so Georgia made more big plays and racking up 120 more total yards. That was the difference, because it was 16-3 at this point, and then Trask hit Van Jefferson. Tremendous play as he beat the two defensive backs for the Dogs to high point the football at the goal line. It was reviewed. It was a touchdown, 16-10. Trask hit on 21 of 33 for 257. Van Jefferson, a couple catches for 31 yards. That was the big one out of him from 23 yards out. And the touchdown, 16-10 game. Georgia then answered immediately as Florida scored within a score, closed within a score. 7 plays, 75 yards for the Dogs. Lawrence Cager wide open, 52-yard play, blown coverage, just shot down the seam, threw up his hand, easy as all get out. 24-10 with a 2-point conversion. Florida then answered. But the issue with them answering is they took up a ton of time. So they could not gash Georgia on the next series. So Dogs lead at 24-10. Florida does go on a 75-yard scoring drive, but it takes them 17 plays and just under 7 minutes. So once they score, there's hardly any time left. If Georgia gets one first down, which they did, game over. Eli Wolf on a 3rd and 7 play from 22 yards. That closed it out. Dogs win at 24-17. Again, for me, the difference in the game, because I thought Trask and Fromm was a stalemate. They both played reasonably well. I thought, the Florida wide receivers, once they had an opportunity to make plays, certainly would make the plays. They have an elite unit at wide receiver. It was Florida's ability or inability to run the football versus Georgia's ability to run it enough. And then the couple big plays that Georgia was able to convert. Lawrence Cager getting free on the blown coverage. That was huge, of course, to sprint out to the 24-10 lead. That's your difference in the ball game. There's still a separation between these two teams. Georgia moves to 7-1 on the season, but the season is not over, even though this is the biggest game for them all season in winning the SEC East. 3 difficult games to come. Missouri not playing well right now, but Mizzou does come to Athens, at Auburn, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech at the end of the year. So to win the SEC East, they certainly need to win at least 2 of those 3 games. Of course, with the 2 losses possibly eliminating them from the college football playoff, Georgia on thin ice. Florida's most likely out. Let's say it right now. They're out. 6-2. They've got Vandy, Mizzou on the road, and Florida State to close out. Gators and Dogs fans, let me know what you think of your team's performances on the season and how far you have to go to make it to that elite level here in 2019 for Georgia. You're right on the path. You're right there, but definitely having issues being an explosive offense for the most part. And the ground game, again, was productive enough, but not nearly as effective as it may need to be later. For Florida, looks like a copy of 2018, basically. Good team, not ready for a college football playoff or an SEC championship game yet under Dan Mullen. Let's talk it up right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.